Hello friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy. Today, we have 4 stories out of the Entitled Parents subreddit. Let's begin. My mom paid for me and my wife's wedding photos as a gift and then tried to use it as leverage to see them before us. This is long, so I apologize. So my wife and I were young and didn't have much money, so we asked our respective parents for help as much as we could. Her parents helped way more than we could have ever asked, and never asking for anything in return. They actually were surprised that my wife was able to pull off as much as she did with the small amount we had. My dad had recently been through a terrible divorce, a long story for another day, and had moved into a new place. I didn't feel comfortable asking him for money, so the majority of the load was left to my mother and stepfather. The one thing you should know about my mother is that nothing is ever simply a gift with her. Everything comes with a twist. You just never know when she will use it against you. When we mentioned that we needed help, of course she was more than happy to help. Her gift to us was to pick whatever photographer we wanted, no matter the price. We happily accepted and thanked them both. Fast forward several months, the wedding is finished and we are barely a month into our marriage. A little more background about the story. My grandfather, my mom's dad, was in the late stages of dementia. He no longer recognized anyone, and believed his dreams were real, and never really answered anything much more than an occasional yeah to anything he was asked. It's been rough watching him turn into this. Of course, my mother refused to believe he didn't know who she was or who I was, and regularly told us that we were wrong when we tried to convince her that he was absent mentally. So, the wedding is done and we're waiting for our pictures. All 699 of them, occasionally in contact with the photographer to check in and see how things are progressing. It was always a friendly conversation. One day, my wife received a concerning email from the photographer asking us to please have my mom stop harassing her about the pictures. Confused by the new information, we asked her what she was talking about. According to the photographer, my mother had been emailing and texting multiple times throughout the week asking for pictures that she had finished without telling me or my wife. She was trying to see pictures from our wedding before us. Of course, I immediately called her. I will admit I was angry and went about it in the wrong way, but I still feel justified. So I called her and confronted her about not only how she's treating the photographer, but how she's sneaking around behind our backs to get the pictures before we did. Instead of owning up to her mistake, she tried the power move of thinking that I would back down because she's my mom after all. She told me in a voice of complete sincerity that since she paid for the pictures, she should be able to see them whenever she wanted. Of course, I lost it, not so politely, reminding her that it was a gift to us from her and my stepdad, and that if she intended to act this way, she should have found her own photographer. My wife researched for days to find the perfect person, and when she realized the power move wasn't going to work, she turned to guilt bringing my grandfather into this. This, of course, angered me even more. She said that she wanted the photos so that she could take them and show them to my grandfather, and that it was wrong of me to deny him seeing the pictures before he passed away. At this point, I made up my mind, and out of pure disbelief, I had nothing to say, so I quietly informed her that she would receive the photos when my wife and I felt comfortable showing her, and that she needed to stop harassing the photographer or none of us would get the pictures. To this day, she has never received the photos. The most surprising part is that she hasn't even asked for them. Not too long ago, I asked my stepdad why. He was clueless that all of this was going on. He said that she's still trying to make me feel guilty about how I spoke to her. That's my mother, ladies and gentlemen, always the master manipulator. I know exactly how OP feels. My mother was a narcissist and was basically the same way. All gifts, all presents came with strings attached. And that was just how it was. You didn't ask her for things, and you didn't accept gifts, because that stuff would get used against you in the future. Our next post is by Bazatrick. Entitled parent gets mad at other people's kids for not looking out the plane window. Some backstory first. So my dad works in the military, and it sends him overseas. During this time, we've lived in a number of places, but at the time of the story, we were living in northern Italy. My parents sent me and my 2 older brothers to Italian schools, and because of this, the 3 of us learned and spoke fluent Italian. But the first thing we learned were the cuss words. Of course. Now, in Europe, you can buy some cheap plane tickets and you can fly most places in Europe for cheap. My parents took advantage of these tickets and the fact that we were in Europe to go everywhere. By the time I turned 12, I've been in every country in Europe, Morocco, Israel, Jordan, and Tanzania, and some places in Asia. Yes, I'm well aware of how lucky I am to have been all those places and to have done many cool things. However, because of how often we were on planes and traveled, looking out the window on the plane wasn't all that interesting. So to keep us quiet, my dad had gotten each of us Nintendo DS's so that we could play while we traveled. And now here's where the story begins. Me, I was 11, and my family were on a plane. I can't remember where to. The plane was arranged so that there was 3 seats on both sides of the plane, and you could walk in the middle. My brothers and I sat together. I got the aisle seat, and my mom and dad sat on the other side with some nice guy. My 2 older brothers pulled out the DS's after the plane took off. This apparently was the wrong thing to do. Because we were close to the window, we started playing with our DS's, and this entitled Italian mom got mad. This lady was sitting behind my dad, and she was sitting next to her 16-ish-year-old son, and what I assume is her husband. When she saw us not looking out the window, she immediately started screaming at my dad. Now my dad didn't speak Italian, and she was screaming something pretty close to Italian. The woman was yelling about how it was her first time on a plane and how my brothers and I were setting a bad example for her kid, who looked to be about 16, by not looking at the beautiful land below, and how my brothers and I should be overjoyed to be looking out the plane because it was a rare opportunity and we were wasting it, and how my dad was a horrible parent. I really didn't know why she had such a problem with 3 boys not looking out the window. My dad was confused and asked me to translate, so I told him what she was screaming about. My dad asked me to tell her in Italian how this wasn't anything new for us and that we were being quiet. I, however, was irritated at this woman for being loud, rude, and for calling my saint of a dad a horrible parent. So instead of saying what my dad wanted me to say, I said in a very polite tone in Italian, "Listen, lady, just because it's your first flight doesn't mean it's ours. We've flown many hours and looked out the window plenty of times. We've been quiet and respectful, unlike you. You've annoyed other people because some kids you have nothing to do with have chosen to play quietly on their games instead of looking out the freaking window. Mind your own business, you ugly piece of crap." The woman sat there in shock for a few minutes and then went back to her seat and shut up. My brothers were laughing hysterically, and my dad thought I told her exactly what he said and was very confused by my brothers. We played our games in peace for the rest of the flight. Edit 1. Just for clarification, this happened years ago, for anyone who thought otherwise. TLDR. Entitled parent gets cussed out by an 11-year-old. I don't see what this lady's problem is. The kids were being quiet. It really was none of her business, and she deserved everything she got anyway. If you're enjoying the content so far, please put a heart emoji in the comment section down below. Our next story is by T-Rex Plays. Entitled family wants to fly first class and expects me to give up my seat. This happened in mid-March, just as COVID was starting. I'm aware that this makes me seem like a spoiled person, and I'm sorry. I'm just telling you as it happened. This was my first experience with an entitled parent, and I was just mad. And even writing this is making my blood boil. Anyway, have a great day/night, and happy reading. So, my family and I were flying back from a ski trip. This is important. Now, the day we left the mountain, it was shut down due to COVID. Now, we consider ourselves lucky. However, there were people just arriving that day who had to cancel their skiing plans. So we were just boarding the flight, and normally they had a separate ramp for first class and economy. This is important because this is how we meet the EPs. So we board the plane first and take our seats. Now keep in mind that this is a 5 to 6 hour flight, so the first class cabin has about 20 seats or so. So after our zone boards, the next one boards, and so on until the entitled family comes. They consist of a mother, 2 kids that looked around 13 and 15 respectively. As they passed, they whispered, "Spoiled," under their breath. I didn't think much of it until we were in the air. An hour passes and I'm reading/watching a movie, and I see the 15-year-old EK walk into the cabin. She stares, looks around for a few minutes, and goes back. I again just brush it off and go back to reading. Shortly after that, they start serving the first meal. I ordered a steak and mashed potatoes. As the meals are being served, EK returns with her sister. They looked shocked at the food. To be fair, it looked better than most standard airline food, and walked up and down the aisles. The flight attendant told them that they need to leave and they weren't supposed to be here. Another 15 minutes pass by and I see the entitled mother wandering into the cabin alone and the flight attendant asking her if she was here to see anybody. She said no and is asked to leave. She then asked the flight attendant if she can trade places with one of the first class passengers, and the flight attendant says she can if she gets permission from a passenger she wishes to trade with. Now, we have to understand that this is not normal and she should have said no. I will elaborate on that later. So she heads back and brings her kids, notices that I'm the only one that doesn't have headphones on. Now, I kid you not, this crazy woman asked me to trade seats. No, I could have told her to screw off, but I watched the situation come to be and I wanted to see how it would play out. So I asked her, why should I give you my seat? EM: well, our skiing trip was canceled and we've been saving for this trip for years, and my girls just wanted to have something special. Keep in mind that the rest of my family is sleeping. The 15-year-old kid: plus you're a spoiled brat and you don't need it as much as we do. The 13-year-old: loser. No, I knew this was too much for me to handle, so I woke my parents up across the aisle. My mom: what's this about? Entitled mother: we need your seats. We've had a long day and my kids are disappointed that other kids can fly in first class. Now, my parents are the most respectful people I know, but when someone insults our family, she gets, irritated. My mom: we're not giving our seats to your poor ass. I know it was harsh and mean, but everyone was upset and COVID made everyone nervous and tense. Not an excuse, but just telling you what happened. At this point, most people are telling them to get out, and the 15-year-old says, this B deserves to be in coach. That was the last straw for my mom. She got the flight attendant, and they firmly asked them to get out. The entitled mother says, the other flight attendant said it was okay. She goes on talking about how she needs these seats and that her kids will never go on vacation again because they wasted their money on this one. She is then escorted by the flight crew. 3 hours later, her kids come back at the end to apologize, but ended up saying that we're stuck up. I responded by ordering ice cream and calling them beggars. End note. TLDR. Entitled family wants to have our first class seats and gets mocked and shut down. Our final story is by Chaotic Nature 32. Entitled mommy: my kids and I are moving into your house as a compromise. I'm gonna let you live there too. I'm a 32-year-old woman and I just bought my first house. It has 3 bedrooms, a yard, and it's just what I need right now. I'm single and I live with my 2 dogs and a cat. My sister is 34 and has 3 kids and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. Lately, she's been talking about how such a tiny living space is not enough for the 4 of them. When she learned about the new house I bought, she became very upset and told me that I was being wasteful, as I'm single and don't have kids and therefore don't need as big of a space. I remind her that what I do with my hard-earned money is none of her business. She went to complain to our mother about how selfish I was being. Yesterday evening, I got a call from my mom telling me that I should let my sister and her kids move into the house. My house. I told her no one was going to live in the house that I paid for but me, and the extra space would be great for my dogs to play in. My mom got very upset with me and told me I was being unreasonable, that my sister's kids are growing and they need the extra space and not my dogs. I offered to help my sister out financially so that she could rent a bigger space. My mom got my sister on the phone, who shot the idea down, that I needed to let her kids live in my house. When I refused again, she very generously suggested a compromise. I could live in the house with her and her kids, and I would not have to find somewhere else to live. She said this as if she was doing me a favor. I told her that she had lost her mind and hung up. However, my mom and sister kept pestering me, with my mom trying to guilt trip me by telling me that my sister had been crying over not being able to live in a nice house like mine. I got fed up and decided to shame them. I made a post on Am I the A-hole about this, and of course, most of the commenters could hardly believe how entitled my mom and sister are. They got bashed pretty badly. After getting the verdict from Am I the A-hole, I decided to send my sister and mom a link to this post, letting them know that I had made it. As expected, they freaked the hell out. My mom texted and called me several times telling me what a horrible daughter I am and how I embarrassed her in front of so many people. I told her to calm down. These are all strangers on the internet who have no idea who she is. But asking my mom to listen to reason is like asking a cat to stop shoving things off a horizontal surface. So I told her I'd talk to her when she was willing to act like an adult. My sister's been crying about this to my mom and any relatives who are willing to listen. Most of them won't. They've been on my side from the start and agreed that my sister's demands are ridiculous. They think the whole thing is hilarious. That's all the stories I have for today. Links to the original Reddit posts will be in the description box below. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. If you enjoy my videos, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I upload new videos. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.